September 11th, 2001 changed everything for this country. We came to recognize our vulnerability to the threats of the new era. We saw the harm that 19 evil men could do, armed with little more than airline tickets and box cutters, and driven by a philosophy of hatred. We lost some 3,000 innocent lives that morning in scarcely 2 hours' time. Since 9/11, we've learned much more about what these enemies intend for us. One member of Al-Qaeda said 9/11 was the beginning of the end of America. And we know to a certainty that terrorists are doing everything they can to gain even deadlier means of striking us. From the training manuals we found in the caves of Afghanistan to the interrogations of terrorists that we've captured, we have learned of their ambitions to develop or acquire chemical, biological, or nuclear weapons. And if terrorists ever do acquire that capability, on their own or with help from a terror regime, they will use it without the slightest constraint of reason or morality. That possibility, the ultimate nightmare, could bring devastation to our country on a scale we have never experienced. Instead of losing thousands of lives, we might lose tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of lives in a single day of war. Remember what we saw on the morning of 9/11. And knowing the nature of these enemies, we have as clear a responsibility as could ever fall to government. We must do everything in our power to keep terrorists from ever acquiring weapons of mass destruction.
6 months ago, Tony Blair was promising to stand by America from the first to the last. Now that support is to be tested again. The American Vice President chose Britain as his first port of call on this coalition-building exercise because Mr. Blair has not shown the doubts of some other European leaders about widening the fight against terrorism. Whatever worries some Labour MPs may have about taking action against Iraq, Mr. Blair has no doubts that Saddam Hussein is a threat who has to be dealt with.
He's the only leader in the world that's actually used chemical weapons against his own people. He is in breach of at least 9 UN Security Council resolutions about weapons of mass destruction. He has not allowed weapons inspectors to do the job that the UN wanted them to do in order to make sure that he can't develop them. Now, we have said right from the very outset, you'll have heard me say on many, many occasions, no decisions have been taken on how we deal with this threat. But that there is a threat from Saddam Hussein and the weapons of mass destruction that he has acquired is not in doubt at all.
The Americans have promised a dossier of evidence against Iraq. At the moment, they're not claiming a direct link with September the 11th, rather that Iraq may supply those responsible for the outrage with weapons of mass destruction.
We know from the work we've been able to do in Afghanistan, the training camps and the caves where Al-Qaeda was holed up, that they were aggressively seeking to acquire the same capability. Nuclear weapons, biological or chemical weapons. And we have to be concerned about the potential marriage, if you will, between a terrorist organization like Al-Qaeda and those who hold or are proliferating knowledge about weapons of mass destruction.
That's a new justification for action against Iraq. At the moment, we're raising the hurdle.
If the issue of inspectors is to be addressed, we feel very strongly as a government that it needs to be the kind of inspection regime that has no limitations on it, that is a go anywhere, anytime kind of regime, so that in fact the outside world can have confidence that he's not hiding material that he's promised to give up.
Shortly after the meeting, 2 of the 70 Labour MPs urging caution delivered a letter to Downing Street. Some ministers are also concerned about the legal basis for any action, and the government as a whole believes UN negotiations are critical for building an international coalition. But if it came to it, Mr. Blair would be unlikely to break with America. At this stage, though, the Americans aren't asking for military support. But the assumption among the journalists travelling with the Vice President is that it will eventually come to that.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Senator Norman. I appreciate the introduction and the kind welcome this morning. This is indeed an historic day for Virginia and for the United States. And it's certainly a privilege for Lynn and me to join all of you in greeting Her Majesty the Queen and His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh. Your Majesty, 50 years ago, on your first visit to America as a sovereign, you were given a very warm welcome. A half-century has done nothing to diminish the respect and affection which this country holds you. And we receive you again today in that same spirit. You honor us by returning for this anniversary of Jamestown settlement, and we deeply appreciate your presence this morning. 4 centuries ago, more than 100 colonists aboard 3 small ships were just days from reaching this shore. They'd been at sea nearly 5 months, and great hardships awaited them on the banks of the James River. Yet from the time of their arrival here, the world would never again be as it was. Inside a little 3-sided fort in this corner of Virginia, large events were set in motion, and great and noble traditions were introduced in America. So we pay homage to the first English settlement on the North American shore, and we mark the 14th of May, 1607, as a providential moment in the life of this nation. Jamestown began as a commercial venture, yet within a generation, Virginia was a colony of the Crown. In time, those colonies would number 13, and they would become the United States of America. The beliefs and waves of life observed here were vital in shaping the character of the nation we know today. And these traditions, liberty and law, private property, the spirit of enterprise, and commerce among peoples, all came from the island nation that the colonists of Jamestown had called home. Here at this first settlement, named in honor of the English king, we are joined today by the sovereign who now occupies that throne. She and Prince Philip are held in the highest regard throughout this nation, and their visit today only affirms the ties of trust and warm friendship between our two countries. Your Majesty and Your Royal Highness, all of us feel very privileged and will certainly remember this day that we shared your company. So, on behalf of President Bush and the people of this land, I'm proud to say thank you for joining us and welcome to the United States of America.